Every single day, roughly 1 in 3 adults over the age of 50 experiences measurable loss of leg muscle strength, and most of them have no idea it is happening until they miss a step, stumble getting out of a chair, or find themselves holding the wall just to walk down the hallway. The part nobody tells you is that leg weakness is not a consequence of aging. It is a warning signal. And by the time most people notice it, the process has already been underway for years. If you want to understand what is really happening in your body and what you can actually do about it, subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. We publish evidence-based content like this every week, and I want to make sure you never miss it. Here is the misconception I want you to sit with for a moment. Most people believe weak legs are simply the natural outcome of getting older. You slow down, you use them less, they get weaker. It feels logical. But that is not the full picture, and treating it like a passive process is precisely why so many people end up relying on mobility aids decades before they need to. Think of your leg muscles the way you would think of a central heating boiler that has not been serviced in years. The pipes are still there, the infrastructure is intact, but sediment has built up, the pressure has dropped, and eventually the whole system starts working at 30% of what it should. The boiler did not fail because it aged. It failed because nobody maintained the signals that kept it running. The medical term for this process is sarcopenia, which simply means the progressive loss of skeletal muscle mass, strength, and function. Clinical studies confirm that sarcopenia begins as early as your mid-30s, and by the time you reach 60, you may have lost between 15 and 30% of the muscle mass you had at your physical peak. The legs are where this shows up first and most dramatically, because the lower limbs contain the largest muscle groups in the body: the quadriceps, the hamstrings, the gluteus maximus, the calf complex. And when those systems start to underperform, everything from balance to circulation to joint protection begins to deteriorate in a chain reaction most clinicians are too busy to trace back to its root. Here is something your clinic appointment will almost certainly not cover. The first warning sign is difficulty rising from a seated position without using your arms. I want you to test this right now if you are able. Sit in a standard chair, cross your arms over your chest, and try to stand. If you find yourself leaning forward dramatically, rocking before you rise, or if you simply cannot do it without pushing off the armrests, that is not just a stiffness issue. That is your quadriceps and glute complex telling you their force output has dropped below the threshold needed for functional daily movement. Inside the body, what is happening is a reduction in what researchers call fast-twitch muscle fiber recruitment. These are the explosive fibers responsible for rapid force production. People dismiss this as getting a bit stiff in the mornings or chalk it up to a bad knee. What is actually happening is neuromuscular degradation, and it compounds. Every week you go without addressing it, the nervous system becomes less efficient at signaling those fibers to contract. Most people wait until they have fallen before anyone mentions physiotherapy. By then, the work is 3 times harder. The second warning sign is unexplained fatigue in your legs after short walking distances. I am not talking about exhaustion after a 10-kilometer hike. I mean feeling your legs become heavy, burning, or genuinely tired after walking from your car to the supermarket entrance, distances of 200 meters or less. What most people assume is that this is a cardiovascular problem, and sometimes it is. But research shows that in a significant proportion of cases, the fatigue is muscular and metabolic. When leg muscles are weakened and poorly vascularized, they run out of the glycogen and oxygen they need to sustain even low-intensity effort far faster than healthy muscles would. The muscle is essentially underfueled and understaffed. People dismiss this by telling themselves they are just out of shape, and they reduce their activity further, which accelerates the very deterioration that caused the fatigue in the first place. That cycle is what leads people into immobility years ahead of schedule. The third warning sign is balance problems, particularly when standing on one leg or navigating uneven surfaces. If you find yourself instinctively grabbing for handrails, hesitating on curbs, or feeling momentarily unstable when you turn quickly, this is not an inner ear problem in most cases. The proprioceptive system, the network of sensors in your muscles, tendons, and joints that tells your brain where your body is in space, relies on muscular tension and activation to function correctly. When the leg muscles weaken, the proprioceptive signals become imprecise. Your brain receives less accurate data about your position, and your ability to make the micro-corrections needed for balance degrades with it. This is clinically significant because falls are the leading cause of injury-related death in adults over 65, and a large proportion of those falls are preventable with targeted strength work. Most people attribute their balance issues to dizziness or age without ever addressing the muscular component. The fourth warning sign is chronic knee or hip pain that has not responded to standard treatment. This one is counterintuitive, which is exactly why it gets missed. Most people with knee pain assume the problem is in the knee, cartilage wear, inflammation, a meniscus issue, and those things may be present. But research consistently shows that weak quadriceps increase the compressive load on the knee joint by a measurable and significant degree. When the muscles surrounding a joint cannot absorb and distribute force properly, that force goes directly through the joint itself. So the pain you feel in your knee may be originating from a mechanical failure one level above it. The same applies to the hip. Weak gluteal muscles force the hip joint to work without adequate muscular support, and that generates pain that clinicians often treat with anti-inflammatory medication, rather than the strength training that would actually address the root cause. That is not an accident of medicine. That is a pattern. The fifth warning sign is a noticeable change in your walking speed or stride length. This one is so well documented that walking speed has been formally described in gerontological research as a sixth vital sign, a genuine predictor of health outcomes, hospitalization risk, and mortality. If the people around you are consistently walking faster than you without effort, if you find yourself shortening your steps, or if you have subtly stopped walking on your heels and shifted to a flat-footed shuffle, your neuromuscular system is compensating for weakness in the lower limb chain. People put this down to joint pain or tiredness and adjust their lives around it, rather than treating it as the biological signal it is. Now let me address the myth that most people believe without question. The myth is this: if your legs are weak, it is because you need to rest them more. Pain means stop. Weakness means slow down. This belief is not just unhelpful, it is physiologically backwards. Muscle tissue responds to load. When you remove load, the body interprets that as a signal that the muscle is no longer needed, and it accelerates the very degradation process you are trying to avoid. The correct response to leg weakness, barring acute injury or specific medical contraindication, is progressive resistance and movement, not rest. Rest maintains weakness. Controlled, graduated stress rebuilds the signaling pathways and the muscle fibers that have been lost. The analogy here is simple. If you stop using a language, you forget it. Muscle memory works on the same biological principle. The body does not preserve what it is not asked to use. Let me tell you about Mirela. She was 58 when she came to see me, a secondary school teacher who had been dealing with bilateral knee pain for about 3 years. She had seen an orthopedic consultant, been given a diagnosis of early-stage osteoarthritis, and told to avoid stairs and high-impact activity. She had done exactly that. She had taken the anti-inflammatory medication, used the knee supports, and stopped the recreational walking she had done for years. By the time she sat in my consulting room, she was using a stick on bad days. Her sleep was being disrupted by the pain, and she told me, "I just assumed this was what getting older looked like. Nobody ever suggested it could be reversed." What I noticed was not in her imaging or her blood results. It was in the way she got out of the chair when I called her in. She used her hands, both of them. A woman in her late 50s. When I asked her about her daily activity level, she described a life that had become progressively more sedentary over 3 years of pain avoidance. She was barely walking 2,000 steps a day. She had lost the muscular support around both knee joints, which meant the joint surfaces were bearing load without adequate protection, which was worsening the very arthritis she was trying to manage by resting. We started with chair-based resistance work, seated leg presses against a resistance band, wall sits held for 10 seconds and built up gradually, step-ups onto a low platform. Within 6 weeks, she was off the stick on most days. Within 4 months, she told me, "I walked to the market last Saturday for the first time in 2 years. Not because I had to, because I wanted to." Her walking speed had increased by roughly 30% measured across a standard 10-meter test. Her reported pain had halved. Nothing about her arthritis had changed. What changed was the muscular environment around the joint. The biggest risk factor for accelerated leg muscle loss is prolonged, unbroken sitting. Not the type of sitting you do on a long flight once a year, the type that describes most modern working and retired life. Research confirms that sitting for more than 8 unbroken hours a day reduces lower limb circulation, inhibits the muscle protein synthesis signals that maintain tissue, and causes measurable reductions in quadriceps activation efficiency within days. The common misconception is that this is canceled out by a single gym session or evening walk. It is not. The metabolic cost of prolonged sitting is independent of what you do around it. You cannot compensate for 10 hours of inactivity with 40 minutes of exercise. The solution is interruption, standing or walking for 2 to 5 minutes every 45 to 60 minutes throughout the day. The second major risk factor is low dietary protein intake. Most adults over 50 consume well below the amount of protein needed to support muscle maintenance, let alone rebuilding. Research now places the optimal protein intake for sarcopenia prevention at between 1.2 and 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, significantly above the general recommended daily allowance, which was designed for sedentary populations and disease prevention, not for active muscle maintenance in aging adults. The most common misconception is that eating enough protein means having some meat at dinner. For a 60-kilogram person, optimal intake means roughly 72 to 96 grams of protein distributed across the day, not concentrated in one meal, because muscle protein synthesis is maximized when protein is spread across 3 to 4 eating occasions. Specific foods that deliver high-quality complete protein include eggs, Greek yogurt, tinned sardines, lentils combined with rice, and chicken breast. Now I want to give you something practical. I call this the leg rebuild protocol, a structured daily approach built around what the research actually supports for neuromuscular restoration. In the morning, within 30 minutes of waking, perform what I call the foundation sequence. This takes 12 minutes. Begin with 5 minutes of walking, not strolling, but purposeful walking at a pace that slightly elevates your breathing. Then move immediately to wall sits. Stand with your back flat against a wall, lower until your thighs are parallel to the floor, or as close as you can comfortably get, and hold for 10 to 20 seconds. Rest for 30 seconds. Repeat 5 times. The wall sit activates the quadriceps under sustained load, which is the specific type of stimulus that targets the slow twitch fibers responsible for postural endurance. Do not hold your breath during the hold. Slow nasal breathing throughout. Finish the sequence with 10 controlled heel raises on both feet, then 10 on each foot individually if you are able. This targets the calf complex and begins to restore the proprioceptive feedback from the lower limb. During the day, set a reminder every 45 minutes. When it sounds, stand from whatever you are doing and walk for 2 minutes. This is not optional padding. This is the mechanism by which you interrupt the metabolic suppression of prolonged sitting. At lunchtime, eat a protein-anchored meal. 2 eggs with Greek yogurt or a tin of sardines with whole grain bread and a side of legumes. Target 25 to 30 grams of protein at this meal. In the evening, perform the resistance component. 3 sets of sit-to-stand repetitions from a standard chair, no hands. If this is currently too difficult, reduce the chair height with a cushion and work with what you can do. Then progressively remove the cushion over weeks. Aim for 8 to 12 repetitions per set. Follow with a 2-minute static stretch of the hip flexors. Kneel on one knee, the other foot flat on the floor in front of you, and gently push your hips forward until you feel a stretch in the front of the kneeling leg's hip. Hold 30 seconds each side. This matters because chronically shortened hip flexors are one of the most common and most overlooked contributors to altered gait and reduced stride length. What not to do. Do not begin with high-impact exercise, such as running or jumping, if you have not been active for more than 6 months. Research shows that untrained aging muscle subjected to sudden high-impact load experiences microdamage at a rate that outpaces the repair capacity of the tissue, leading to increased soreness, discouragement, and abandonment of the protocol. Start with load you can manage and increase the challenge by roughly 10% per week. There are 3 tests I would recommend discussing with your doctor in relation to leg strength and muscle health. The first is a simple timed up and go test. Your doctor or physiotherapist can administer this in under 2 minutes. You rise from a chair, walk 3 meters, turn, walk back, and sit. Healthy adults under 60 should complete this in under 10 seconds. Over 12 seconds in someone under 70 is a clinically meaningful flag for fall risk and muscle function decline. The second is a serum vitamin D level, a standard blood test. Vitamin D is not just a bone health marker. Research confirms that vitamin D receptors are present in muscle tissue, and vitamin D deficiency, defined as a serum level below 50 nanomoles per liter, is directly associated with reduced muscle strength, particularly in the lower limbs. Deficiency is extraordinarily common, particularly in populations with limited sun exposure, and yet it is rarely checked in the context of leg weakness. Levels between 75 and 125 nanomoles per liter appear to be optimal for muscle function. The third test is a grip strength measurement, which may seem unrelated to leg weakness, but serves as one of the most validated surrogate markers of overall skeletal muscle health. Grip strength below 27 kilograms in men and below 16 kilograms in women is associated with higher rates of disability, hospitalization, and mortality in multiple large-scale studies. It is quick, cheap, and gives your doctor a meaningful baseline from which to track progress. The experience of leg weakness shifts across decades in ways that matter for how you approach it. In your 40s, the loss is subtle: slightly reduced recovery after exercise, a mild decline in explosive speed. Most people ignore it entirely at this stage, which is unfortunate because this is the window where intervention requires the least effort and produces the most durable results. In your 50s, the loss becomes functionally noticeable: the chair test, the stairs, the fatigue on moderate walks. This is the decade where most people first bring it to a clinician, and unfortunately the most common response is symptomatic treatment rather than root cause correction. In your 60s and beyond, the loss has accumulated to the point where it affects independence, fall risk, and metabolic health in serious ways. But research consistently shows that even in this decade, meaningful strength gains are achievable with consistent progressive training. It is never too late to begin, but the earlier you begin, the less ground you are recovering. How old are you? Write it in the comments. I want to know which age group this content hits closest to home, so I can focus future videos on exactly where you are right now. There are situations where what I am describing is not a physiology video problem. It is an emergency. If you experience sudden weakness in one or both legs that comes on within minutes or hours, particularly if accompanied by numbness, difficulty speaking, facial drooping, or loss of bladder control, stop what you are doing and call for emergency help immediately. This combination can indicate a stroke or spinal cord compression, both of which require urgent medical intervention where minutes determine outcomes. If you experience severe leg pain at rest that is not relieved by position change and is associated with skin that appears white, blue, or unusually cold, this may indicate acute arterial occlusion, a vascular emergency. If you develop sudden and severe back pain radiating down one or both legs with weakness, this may indicate cauda equina syndrome, which requires emergency spinal decompression. These are not situations for watchful waiting. These are situations for calling an ambulance. Here is exactly what to do after this video. 1. Perform the sit-to-stand test from a standard chair with arms crossed, and note whether you can do it without using your hands. This is your baseline. 2. Set a recurring alarm every 45 minutes during your waking hours as a movement prompt, starting today. 3. Calculate your optimal daily protein target. Multiply your body weight in kilograms by 1.4 and aim to consume that many grams of protein spread across 3 meals. 4. Begin the morning foundation sequence tomorrow. 5 minutes walking, 5 wall sits of 10 to 20 seconds, 10 heel raises each side. 5. Book a routine appointment with your GP to request a serum vitamin D test and ask about a timed up and go assessment. Everything we covered today is for your understanding and education. Your situation is specific to you, and using this as a starting point for a real conversation with your doctor will always be more useful than trying to manage things on your own. If this video gave you something that a standard consultation never quite did, a clear picture of what is happening and what to do about it, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. It genuinely helps more people find this content, and there is a great deal more where this came from.